Welcome back to Half A Hot Rods. Today we're back on Tucker's truck, and I guess the last episode we learned the hard way, which seems to be the way I usually learn. Initially going into this, I was looking at this engine, looking at all the pieces that were pulled off it, and I thought, nobody pulls an alternator or a fan or all these other miscellaneous pieces, a power steering pressure hose off a good running engine. There's something wrong with this engine. And because I got it to pop that first time, I kind of abandoned that thought. I'm like, oh, it might be okay, even though I should have probably known better. So we went through all those tests, and well, we figured out that it is tired and wore out. So we're going to go ahead and get this one pulled out. Not sure exactly what direction we're going as far as its replacement, whether it'll be another TBI 350 or if we'll do a carbureted engine or what we'll do. But again, this one's on as always, a little to no budget kind of build. He wasn't really planning on having to replace the engine. We're trying not to rob the engine out of that other truck if we don't have to, because we'd rather have two complete trucks than one complete truck and one pile of parts. So today I'm going to get started pulling this out. The first time I pulled an engine, I actually did it in my dad's garage, and we did it with a wooden A-frame that he built, and it was pretty simple, effective. I've got a cherry picker now, just a Harbor Freight cheapo one. I borrowed one for years from a friend to use to do this kind of stuff, but pulling an engine really isn't nearly as complicated as some of the diagnostics we try and do. Essentially you're going to disconnect any wiring that goes to the engine. You're going to disconnect any hoses that go to the engine, fuel, coolant. We're going to disconnect the transmission cooler lines and pull the transmission out with the engine because it's easier to separate them on the floor. It's got a couple seals leaking and stuff too, so we'll take care of that stuff while it's out. And we'll just kind of bring you along for the ride. It's a simple process, but time consuming. Much easier with two people, but I don't have that luxury today, so we're just going to crank it out the best we can. So stick with me here. We'll see how far we can get today in the time I've got. So one of the biggest things you can do if you've never done this stuff before, even if you have done this stuff before, to make life easier for yourself, I mentioned it in the other video when I talked about the LS swap blazer, is just marking stuff as you take it off. GM's pretty good about making sure stuff won't reach where it shouldn't go, and that it won't plug in because the plug will be different, but I don't know if all the manufacturers are that way. And even with that being the case, it's much nicer if you can just look at it and read it, and then you know where it goes when you go back together. The other thing you can do to make life easier is whenever you can, once I get this ground bolt off, I'll put this bolt back in the bracket it came from. The less bolts I have laying around, the less I have to figure out where they actually belong, where home is. And like this one should be pretty easy to figure out since the other side of it goes to the ground, but also if I've got somebody helping me later on, like my son or Tucker or my daughter or anybody, I can say, hey, the one that says ground on it just goes to the engine block. Should be pretty easy to figure out. And the AC stuff, we're going to just pull the compressor off and lay it over to the side, and hopefully it'll be enough out of the way that we can get everything out of here. That's cute. Instead of doing even the crappy spring type hose clamp, this is just a wire twisted together. Which, again, it worked, but it ain't the right way to do it. coolant in it. It's rusty and in terrible shape, but there's some in there. What the heck? Oh, I just pulled it off the bottom of the water pump too. Cool. Because it wasn't connected over there. Why would it be? Makes perfect sense. Try and there we go. Get at least a third of it into the drip pan. There's that extra battery cable. I want to make sure we save that. Oh, still some in there. Nasty. Rust. That's. I wish I was surprised. I think this poor truck has just had a terrible life. That's gross. I mean, it looks like somebody just threw up. That's what I just accidentally dumped out of there. Chunks of rust and ick in the cooling system. So you can imagine what the rest of the inside of that engine looks like. Not good at all. Feels like it might have a little bit left in it. Still on there. Don't feel like that. Not necessary. Oh. Thing's not exactly like. Look at that. Right into the battery tray. Just like I planned it. Train perfection. Alright, I think that gets pretty much all the wiring for the TDI motor out of here. We'll have a couple more plugs on the distributor, probably one on the coil. Those injectors, just you squeeze on here, and the plugs come up out of the top. And then the wiring goes through a little rubber grommet that sits here in the throttle body, and it pulls right out. Everything lays over the side. So, I'm gonna have to. I guess we could get on to the stuff that's probably not gonna go well, which is the exhaust manifold bolts. I'll be surprised if we don't break half of them off. But we may as well see what we got, right? I don't want to just cut the exhaust because I don't know how much of it we're going to need to reuse. More than likely we'll reuse the manifolds. I don't really know beyond that. Let's see what we get here. Why are you in the way? Why did you not just cooperate? I don't want to do this manually. What the heck? That was a shim on the AC bracket. Okay, learn something every day. Didn't know that was a thing. I know what we need. Most of these universal joints are not intended for impact use. I never let that stop me though. The coil is, I mean, this is some serious high-speed stuff here. They've got it grounded by wrapping the wire around it, which is, yeah, that's just how GM intended it, I'm sure. All the wiring back here is lubricated because of the oil leak I had from me breaking off the fitting. Go. Get out of there. Do you want to get better or don't you? You got to work with me just a little. Ironically, I discovered in doing Mavericks and Missy's LS swaps that these particular lines where they screw into the output of the fuel filter underneath is the same type and size of fitting as the early truck LS or LM7 engines, so you can use the 99-ish fuel lines will screw directly into the fuel filter from a TBI vehicle and run the rest of the way up, so you got all the pressure line you need. So just you know, if you're going that route, but we're not on this one. But again, if funds allow, LS swap definitely worth the investment. Well, I wasn't going to show you some of this stuff because I didn't figure it'd be very interesting, but first thing I do is come back here to just zip the drive line out. That's no big deal, right? I knew we had a pinion seal leak, which you can see here, but when I started trying to hold it so I could take it loose, that's not good. So, yeah, that's something we're going to have to address. Yet another issue with an old truck. Well, I've got just about everything undone underneath. Drive line's out, exhaust is off. Only had to break one exhaust stud, so that was cool. Got most of the wiring disconnected everywhere, hoses disconnected. Only thing I didn't disconnect is the starter, because I think I can get it up a little higher, and it'll be easier for me to get in there from the top and get it. We'll see. I may end up fighting with it either way, but we're going to give that a shot. Maverick and I are going to pull the hood off. This is much better done with one person. You can do it much better done with two people. You can do it with one, but it's not much fun. Before I took it off, I went ahead and went around the brackets with a magic marker and marked everything so that we can find a pretty good spot of adjustment when we get back to putting it back together. I mean, obviously it's not fantastic, but it fits and doesn't hit the fenders right now, so that's the way we kind of like to have it when we're done. So we're going to pull the hood off. I've already got the chain hooked to the engine, and we'll get the cherry picker set up and see what I forgot, because that's what the cherry picker does, is tells you what you forgot. So stand by. Alright. If you want to hold the top, take the light off there. Keep it from falling. You can rest it against those gloves. And of course you can do this with other inches, it's just quicker this way. fingers that were in there. I got several.
Could be it. Could be.
Yeah. So here's what we're going to do. You go that way, and once you get on the side of it, we'll flip it out and stand it up that way. Okay. And we'll come around my side, and then clear it back. Well, we got it hooked to the chains and started pulling. As you can see, it's kind of cockeyed in there. It started coming up. I forgot to turn the camera back on. We had to fight with getting the truck set at the right height, as low as you can go and still get the cherry picker under it. Ideally, really the best way to do this is the way I did it the first time I ever pulled an engine, which is a big A-frame, whether it's a metal one, a gantry crane, or just a homemade wood one, as long as it's strong enough. But that way you get no limit to how much lift you get almost. This, it runs out of height, it runs out of reach into the engine bay. If you don't have a core support front clip on, it works pretty good. But with the core support and front clip on, it's a kind of a constant battle. You'll still get the job done, it's just more of a pain. So we're going to keep cranking on it here and see what catches. Almost got it where I can get to those starter wires. We'll see if we can get a little more out of it before we try and get those without destroying anything. Let's see if anything else breaks. Yep, there it goes. Was that the truck moving down?
Let's just focus on the motor.
Let's pretend it's fine and keep going. Just a tiny bit. Just don't be stuck. I'm not getting in the brake yet, so we're going to try and pry very gently here. You don't want to bend up the core support. You don't want to bend up. Yep, too late. Holy. There you go. I can fix that. It's fine. This is why it would be better to have something that I can pull this straight up or just pull the core support. Bent the lip on the top of that core support. It's something I can fix. It's not going to hurt the function of anything, but it's just annoying to tear stuff up. That's it right there. All the up we got. So just make sure we don't put our hands anywhere in the pinch. I'm going to swing the transmission over. Gotta pick it up.
I know. Try not to.
I don't want to scratch the paint.
The pesky AC parts that don't want to run away.
Listen, those could be important one day.
I got it. You should grab that hand, so when I let it down, it's going to leak again. Oh, it already is.
Yep. Either that or you're bleeding.
No, I haven't touched the wingman before. Don't do that. You got to tell me, guys.
Oh, let's get away from the grill.
Yeah!
Roll.
Alright, just let it down.
Why are you so excited? I think it's heavy. Small block. And she's out. Just like that.
I don't think she was leaking anywhere.
No. Alright, let's see if I can show you some of the stuff I did underneath that's hard to see under there, but you can sure see it now. So, we got these stainless fuel lines. These are factory, I'm pretty sure. Disconnected them from the body. I had already disconnected them from the top, but then I remembered they had a bracket back here that I didn't want to monkey with, that somebody else has already monkeyed with. Exhaust manifold studs. That's broken. I'm surprised I didn't break all of them. Let's see, what else? The speedometer cable right here. Shifter linkage right here is just pulling a pin and pushing the rod out. This is that wire that was still hanging there. The drive line just slides out the back. Didn't take TV cable or cooler lines off because the cooler lines are attached to the engine. So they were good. Well, they weren't going anywhere. I twisted one off at the radiator and the other one doesn't look good, so we'll probably do new ones there too. But it is officially out. So we will go get our new used one next week and then start swapping stuff over, cleaning things up. Transmission rear seal probably needs replaced. It was leaking. You can tell by the buildup on it that it was leaking before I started, trying to tip it upside down. The fitting back here, you still can't see that. The back of the intake. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's full of crud. But it was still pumping oil out. So, that's where the that's where the oil pressure sender busted off when I decided to replace it. But yeah, it's out. And I got another mess to clean up. So I think we might just put the rear wheels back on this bad boy so I can roll it around a little bit, clean this mess up some before I get started cleaning up the engine bay. Because if you're going to have the engine out, you may as well clean everything up, at least clean it up. If not, give it a little coat of paint. Give it a rattle can rebuild. So I think that's where we'll call this one an episode. So we're getting there on Tucker's truck. Man, I said it wasn't hot before. It sure feels hot. But we've got one engine out with a Harbor Freight cherry picker and a couple of floor jacks that are not the highest end. I got a pile of end wrenches. Here, I didn't straighten things up. This is what it really looks like when I do things. Yep. But I'll straighten them all up and put them away so that next time I start I can find stuff again. But end wrenches, basic socket sets, pry bars, willingness to keep going on it and just tracking stuff down, finding out what's hanging up next. I did my first engine removal about a year after I started messing with cars, so I really still knew nothing about it. But we managed. Something a friend of mine's dad told me was, just remember, some guy put it together so you can take it apart. You just got to figure out which bolts have to come out to do it. So until next time, remember, if I can do it, you can do it. If you like what we're doing, give us a like, drop a comment, let me know what you think of it, what we can do better, and subscribe. And I'll keep putting out videos, and hopefully it'll be helpful to somebody. Thanks again for watching.